Hello folks, and welcome to Jack Reviews Musicals. If this is your first time seeing my face, hi! My name is Jack, and I am a musical theater superfan based in St. Louis, Missouri. This is my YouTube channel, where I share my thoughts on all of the musical productions that I go out to see, and this video is actually this channel's very first double feature. I'm talking about Tesseract Theater's new musical Summer Festival, which played at the Marcel Theater from July 11th through the 28th of 2024. Tesseract Theater is a St. Louis theater company specializing in producing original plays, lesser-known works, and rarely produced shows. And every summer, Tesseract Theater holds a New Works Festival, where they present 2 new theatrical works repertory style. And this year marks the first time that Tesseract Theater is presenting musicals for their New Works Festival. The first show that premiered is My Heart Says Go, which is a musical that Tesseract Theater actually discovered via social media. And the other that came on board later is Cascade's Fire, which is an original musical that was conceived by an associate of Tesseract. Both of these shows are very different from each other, and they exert this energy of experimentation. You know the kind that says, yeah, they could use some work, but we're really seeing something original here with a lot of potential. I saw Cascade's Fire first, so this is the one that I am going to be talking about first. Cascade's Fire was conceived by Taylor Grunlow, who is actually a former creative director at Tesseract Theater. Last year, Taylor Grunlow moved on from the company to become a professor of theater at Missouri S&T, where he developed Cascade's Fire alongside fellow professor Kyle Wernke as the score's composer. Grunlow serves as the librettist for the show, both book and lyrics, and for Tesseract's production, he directed his own script. Now, Cascade's Fire is billed as a modern Antigone story, and Taylor Grunlow actually justifies his position in the program here. He says, "When there is an extreme political divide amongst the populace, this story always arrives. Malleable to any modern culture, discussing the moment an oppressive ruling force won't be tolerated any longer, and the mistakes taken on a journey of claiming one's own independent power." Sophocles' Antigone is a story that is very hard to watch. There is lots of commentary about the nature of mankind and tyranny and the relationships between men and women within tyranny. And it discusses really heavy truths about the dichotomy between love and abuse and between selfishness and selflessness. And Cascade's Fire is not safe from this. It discusses all of these issues and more from a modern context. Taylor Grunlow wrote Cascade's Fire in a non-linear format that makes the story jump around back and forth between the present day and 3 years ago. The Antigone figure in this story is the titular Cascade. During Cascade's senior year of college, she begins a polyamorous relationship with 2 students named Trinity and Robbie. But as their relationship progresses, Cascade starts seeing that her college's female students are increasingly dropping out. And at the same time, Robbie and Trinity start growing apart. Robbie starts becoming popular in social circles that to Cascade are very unsavory. And Trinity starts to become mentally unstable, turning to drugs and getting to the point where she actually takes her own life by jumping off of a bridge. And 3 years later, Cascade manages to find a lead into what caused Trinity's death, which turns out to be a wide-reaching, deeply consequential conspiracy. A conspiracy that was plotted by students who are friends of Robbie. And along the way of us discovering the exact details of this conspiracy as we're jumping around between these different points in time, Cascade concocts a plot for murderous revenge. A plot that is compounded by Dylan, who is an innocent student that wants to get to the bottom of this conspiracy through non-violent means. But of course, Cascade's Fire is a Greek tragedy, so because of this, everyone is punished. Mainly by our Greek chorus. We have two narrators in this story, one man, one woman, and the two of them go back and forth commenting on the action, either actively berating the characters for creating such a highly destructive story, and they also berate us, the audience, for consuming this narrative, for becoming a part of this destruction ourselves. And when we consume Cascade's Fire, there are some things that we have to wrestle with. Issues like mutually assured destruction, suicide, sexual abuse, human trafficking. Issues that are a very hot topic right now. And Taylor Grunlow and Kyle Warnke's material here very much treats it that way. Whenever the Greek chorus is not doing any social commentary or righteous scolding to the characters and the audience, a lot of the dialogue and the lyrics of Cascade's Fire is just a lot of shouting and petulance and a lot of cruelty being hurled our way. Something important to note is that in the program, Tesseract did not include a content warning for Cascade's Fire, which is very strange to me because I would have thought that with content that was as divisive and as triggering as the kind that you would find in a show like this, there probably would have been a bit more foresight to include something like that. Taylor Grunlow and Kyle Warnke's songs come from the Spring Awakening school of songwriting. The songs focus more on exploring the character's emotional state and biting social commentary rather than moving the story forward. But, much like in Spring Awakening, the songs themselves are quite good. The score reveals very deep personal feelings about society at large that I think are definitely worth a listen. To my knowledge, Tesseract, I think, is trying to create a cast recording for Cascade's Fire. They've only made one song public so far. That's Time. I'm going to be putting a link to that in the description. Hopefully they'll have released more songs by the time this video comes out, or maybe even produce the full cast recording. I don't know. I'll be sure to platform it if they do. The musical direction by Randon Lane is good, but only if you really take into account the show's intentions. Because Cascade's Fire is, by all accounts, an unpolished Greek tragedy. It's political theater, so the actors have to focus more on the acting first rather than on sounding pretty. So because of this, the songs, or at least the voices of the cast, are often very rough, very pitchy, very confrontational. Though they do take some moments to have some tenderness in their voice, which hits just the right balance for a show like this. Even Taylor Grunlow's staging is akin to a Greek tragedy. All of the cast members are barefoot, and the set consists of a floor designed by Taylor Grunlow and David Pisoni, painted to resemble veins, branches, or fuses leading towards an explosive. And when a cast member is not in the present scene, they either sit in chairs that flank the playing area, or on a series of elevated platforms that sit upstage. And downstage on this are also benches that act as a sort of barrier between the cast and the audience. And sometimes the characters stand on the benches whenever they're, prophesying to themselves or to the audience. The staging feels very loose and very cold. Even the lighting by Matt Stuckel is very stark, though it does have some pretty great atmospheric moments, particularly the ending. But I think this rough, unpolished feel to Cascade's Fire actually makes it very effective. It really evokes Bertolt Brecht's idea of epic theater, where you are forcing the audience to actually pay attention to the words that are being spoken here and the messages that are being conveyed. And the great news is, everybody in the cast was on that same page. The role of Cascade is played by Josie Schnelton, and she has an absolutely massive task of portraying this young woman who is very bitter about the world around her, but also determined enough to actually do something about it. Even if she has to set the world on fire, quite literally. Josie Schnelton gave a passionate performance here. The roles of Trinity and Robbie are played by Campbell Heemeyer and Jordan Duncan, respectively. And they find just the right amount of vulnerability that it makes the audience legitimately feel sorry for them when they've become embroiled in this conspiracy. The mastermind of this conspiracy, Luke, is played by Luke Egner. Luke's persona in the story is essentially that of Andrew Tate, the alpha male who thinks of women as property, things to be used and exploited for profit. Luke is a very smugly self-aware, amoral character that Luke Gegner actually fully embodies so convincingly. I was tempted more than once to jump out of my seat, jump over the benches, and straight up deck him. David Pisoni plays the role of the innocent, Dylan. Ella Penico plays Luke's ex, Olivia. Both Dylan and Olivia are caught on two different sides of Luke's conspiracy, and both of these actors very effectively portray the fear and confusion that comes with being culpable in this, and the conclusions that they come to about the parts that they played in this tragedy really makes you feel sorry for them. Brittany Roberson and Chris Melton are the Greek chorus, and they set the scenes like harbingers of inevitable doom. And they do incredible work of affecting this self-righteous attitude when they deliver their sermons about society, or whenever they have to castigate the characters. At the end of the day, Cascade's Fire is a highly strident cautionary tale about the consequences of vengeance in the name of justice. I think I do want to see this show be developed further to the point where colleges can actually license this show, because I think this is a very important musical for young people to see. Like, you're a young person, you want to fight for social justice, you want to fight the good fight, you can do that all you want, but by seeing this story, you have to know this is what you're doing to yourself, and this is what you're doing to the people around you. Taylor Grunlow and Kyle Warnke really have something special on their hands. The lessons that Cascade's Fire teaches us about responsibility to community, about justice and vengeance, these are all lessons that are incredibly important in this day and age, and that alone makes it worth a listen, or even a watch if you get a chance.
And now for something completely different.
Next up is My Heart Says Go. This is another musical with university roots. My Heart Says Go originally premiered in May of 2023. It was created by students and faculty of the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. The songs were composed by Jorge Rivera Herons, and the book was written by Matthew Hawkins, with additional material by Jeffrey Coe. After the initial run at Notre Dame, a cast recording was produced, and the show actually managed to become viral through musical theater TikTok. I'm going to put a link to the cast recording in the description so that you know what I'm talking about. Pictured here on the program is the star of Tesseract's production of My Heart Says Go, Jack Reviews Musical Hall of Fame member Kevin Corpuz, and he is a creative director for Tesseract. He discovered My Heart Says Go through musical theater TikTok and brought it to the attention of fellow creative director Brittany Gunn. And so Tesseract was granted permission from the show's creators to present it for their new musical summer festival. Kevin Corpuz, of course, stars as the leading man, and Brittany Gunn serves as director. My Heart Says Go is a semi-autobiographical, coming-of-age hip-hop musical. The Jorge Rivera Herons figure in this story is Indigo. He's a young man who is a first-generation American and an intellectual genius. Indigo is the son of a lifelong blue-collar worker, and he is actually the first of his family to go to college. And afterwards, he got a scholarship to medical school so that Indigo can study to become a cardiologist. However, 3 years into the program, during a highly crucial moment in Indigo's studies, Indigo loses his passion for medicine and he drops out, much to the frustration of his father, Eliseo, who invested so much into Indigo's future. But despite this rift, Indigo treks out to Los Angeles to follow his heart and become a singer-songwriter. Indigo uses his knack for science and math to develop an algorithm for the perfect pop song, aiming to create the most popular music ever. And along the way, he rooms up with 2 other artists with big aspirations of their own. A fashion designer named Clara, who has her own rocky relationship with her mother, and a Twitch streamer named Timmy, whose friend Rob lends Indigo a recording studio to create his music. And the rest of the show is Indigo preparing to make his big break at a local talent competition with a huge cash prize. All the while, Eliseo tries to convince Indigo to return to medical school, and while Clara and Timmy wrestle with their own artistic and personal struggles. My Heart Says Go is a significantly more lighthearted musical than Cascade's Fire, and it's a much more episodic story. So much so that I'm actually willing to call Tesseract Theater's new musical Summer Festival the musical theater equivalent of Barbenheimer, because we're going from a scorching, melancholic, intimate Greek tragedy to this very positive, very bombastic, and uplifting follow your dreams story. In fact, director Brittany Gunn actually states in the program, most days as an artist you are challenged by life to walk away from your passion. It's easier, it's cheaper, it's less complicated, you'll get more sleep. Those artists who say, no life, I'm good, I'll go ahead and continue to create art and embrace my passion are sometimes hard to come by. Failures are easy in this world, and I decided a long time ago that I would not let the chance of failure ever force me to give up my passion. So yeah, after reading Brittany Gunn's notes here and, sort of figuring out what this story was about, I went into it fully expecting that it was just going to be utter trite. Yeah, it's a story about an aspiring artist who has to overcome a bunch of obstacles in the way of his life's work, culminating in a message to stay positive, believe in yourself, follow your dreams, all that good shit. We've seen it a million times before, just like how we've seen Antigone a million times before. But just like how Cascade's Fire had a unique formula to its story, so too does My Heart Says Go. What really grounds the show for me is the character of Indigo, because Indigo, he isn't just some, middle-class kid with a net to fall back on like most of these stories have. No, Indigo is basically an immigrant kid from the sticks who has nothing to him but a supreme intellect. So much so, in fact, that he was able to rise above his station and go to medical school. And even his father, Eliseo, has to go through an arc to try to see eye to eye with Indigo. And My Heart Says Go is also intensely modern, with a huge focus on algorithms, social media, retention, engagement. And Matthew Hawkins' book tackles those themes realistically to the point that it never feels tacky or written by a focus group. And the hip-hop score by Jorge Rivera Herons is nice, bouncy, and energized. There's definitely a Lin-Manuel Miranda influence in the score. It has a very literary, very lyrical quality, and it does dramatize Indigo's story enough to be worth a listen. There was a reason that it became viral on musical theater TikTok, and why Tesseract is producing it now. The staging by director Brittany Gunn, the choreography by Maggie Nold, and the musical direction by Larry Pry all work together to very effectively match both the score's energy and the book's high stakes. In fact, Brittany Gunn actually doubles as the set designer for this production, creating a visual motif of neon signs that get switched on to transition between all of the different locations. The signs themselves are all very unique, very distinct. They were vibrant, they were colorful, and they contributed nicely to the show's pacing. Matt Stuckel is back here as the lighting designer, and for this production he made some cool atmospheric touches too, including very shadowy lighting for scenes where a character is expressing a powerful emotion, particularly in the climax of the show. The costumes by Abby Pastorello contribute well to the show's hip feeling, especially on the ensemble, and the looks that are designed and worn by Clara are, at turns, hilarious and quite beautiful. Indigo is a role that Kevin Corpuz was born to play. He delivers the rap songs with a high-energy ferocity that is just always on, all the time, which is made compelling by the fact that he had a very strong level of enthusiasm for this role, especially whenever Indigo goes full nerd about his algorithms. It's just a great role, one that Kevin Corpuz sinks his teeth into. Indigo's father, Alicio, was played by Kelvin Erde, who actually only has a 10-year age difference between him and Kevin. But despite how close they are in age, the two of them do have a convincing chemistry as a father and son. Kelvin Erde portrays Alicio with a severe heaviness in his posture, in his movements, in his voice. It affects maturity very convincingly. Sarah Wilkinson as Clara, simply terrific. She matches Indigo's high energy and enthusiasm extremely well, which makes it really funny because Clara, when we first meet her, she's riding the same train to Los Angeles as Indigo is, and her first entrance is literally a pratfall, blowing around the train and in her seat like she is a hurricane. All the while, she's trying to tend to a cut on her forehead that was a result of her mother throwing a bottle at her head. And much like my first impression of how I thought the story was going to be very cliched, I thought that Clara was just going to be another manic pixie dream girl stereotype. But she actually doesn't turn out to be. By the story's end, Indigo and Clara don't end up together. They just remain good friends and roommates, which is honestly really refreshing, especially because Kevin Corpuz and Sarah Wilkinson's chemistry as friends was very charming and sweet. As Clara's mother, Lauren Goudreau gave a bit of a one-dimensional portrayal, being this, belligerent alcoholic struggling with addiction, but her presence was necessary, and she manages to give Clara a tragic angle to her character. It was a nice dramatic foil to the relationship between Indigo and his father. Clayton Humberg was an utter delight as Timmy. Timmy is the kind of character who is just this total geek, but also at the same time, he becomes Indigo's biggest cheerleader out of the core group. You really get this sense of unfettered, contagious joy from Timmy. Like, he is the kind of geek who, now that he has an audience on Twitch, is just so happy to have air in his lungs. It's the kind of positivity that content creators like me truly aspire to. It's a really fearless, really committed portrayal from Clayton Humberg. Grace Langford, an actor from the show's ensemble, has a very brief but very strongly portrayed cameo as the cardiologist that is mentoring Indigo. Kevin Hester plays Timmy's recording artist friend, Rob, in a rather understated performance, so much so that the twist towards the end about Rob's true intentions about letting Indigo use his studio actually came across as an interesting plot twist surprise. Victoria Pines plays the train conductor that takes Indigo and Clara to Los Angeles. The conductor is this sort of omniscient figure that gets into the characters' heads in an uncomfortably intimate way. I would say that if this show was going to be developed further, I would like to see the conductor's role in the story expanded to basically just be an honest-to-goodness narrator. The rest of the ensemble is very talented. They supported the main characters and the action nicely and kept the show moving swimmingly. The ensemble consists of Christian Duncan, Milo Garlich, David Gregory, and Laura Schultz. All in all, My Heart Says Go was a nice palate cleanser from Cascade's Fire, an uplifting story told with a lot of energy, a lot of heart, and earnestness. Yes, it does need work fleshing out one or two story elements, and it is very in your face with how positive it is. But I think we need stories like this, in this modern age where irony and cynicism take up so much space in our media landscape. Cascade's Fire and My Heart Says Go are both extremely promising new musicals. If their cast recordings manage to reach a wide enough audience, we could see more productions of these shows across the country, maybe even to the point where they become the next big fad musicals like The Lightning Thief or Alice by Heart. And I am more than happy that Tesseract Theater presented them as a package deal. These two musicals are great stories on their own, but back to back, they're just as good. So, did you see Tesseract Theater's new musical summer festival this year? If so, what did you think about it? Comment below and let me know. If you ever feel like setting the world on fire, don't forget to take one last look at my website, jackreviewsmusicals.com. All of my reviews are there, including the written reviews that I have published since the start of 2022. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more St. Louis musical theater reviews coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, long live the musical!